gut, there's a couple different combinations and ways to look at getting into a trapped arm gut. The first thing I'm going to do is get my lock on my opponent. One of the simplest ways to do that when your opponent goes down is to reach up into the crotch, move to the outside, lift this. As you start to do that, they'll start to scoot away from you and you'll reach deep. You want to reach as deep as you can with one of your arms. From this position right here, if your opponent leaves his elbow down, and from this position I'm going to use my shoulder here, drive it into his back by tripoding up here. As I drive that and collapse the arm, now I'm just going to trap it, step over to the side, and tip. This time as I work a trapped arm gut, I have my arm deep, but his elbow is up off the mat. He's not going to make a mistake this time. Knows I do a trapped arm gut. So from this position, as I get my lock, go. And I'm deep with my elbow. This time I'm going to post this hand down, and I'm going to put my hand down by my head down by my hand. That'll make this lock a lot tighter. I can leave it up here, but it's not nearly as tight as when I put it down here. So from this position, then I'm going to tripod and do a push-up here. And I lift with my legs. Even if this arm goes out, I'm still able to reach up, drive, and tip my opponent. As I do this trapped arm gut, this time I'm going to lock my hands, cinch the trapped arm, and tech fall my opponent. Go. Hold him for a 5 count, he'd be fighting. Here. Take him back to a base, readjust your lock. Tip him again. Keep your knee between your opponent's legs so he can't scoot back and he can't scoot forward. I just tip him again. Hold him for a 5 count. This time with your trapped arm gut, your opponent really feels it coming and he keeps his arm way out in front. So rather than go to a trapped arm gut right off the lift, I'm going to slip the inside leg onto my opponent, and then I'm going to circle his hip around and trap the arm and take him back. This time on your trapped arm gut, I'm going to reach for the arm, but it won't be there. I'll try to slip my leg in, and it won't be there because he's turning his hip down. Anytime that happens, where you're deep on this side, and he turns his hip down, go ahead and lift it and gut him back to the same direction. So you're faking the trapped arm gut and go into a gut wrench. This time on a trapped arm gut, I'm going to do a regular gut wrench, and when he counters me, I'm going to slip the leg on, and then I'm going to walk that leg around and trap the far side. This time with the trapped arm gut, I'm going to use a head lever. And this is in a position where your opponent's real tough to get his hips up. He's doing a good job. There's lots of motion. So I'm going to straddle my opponent in this position. And I'm going to put this arm right on his tricep here. This hand will come underneath here, and I'll do a lock, a hand clasp. From this position right here, I'm going to step to the outside, all the way to the outside. From this position. Now, if he tries to scoot his hips away or come up to a base, all I'm going to do is lift this up, lift this side here, and pop that over. Right now, I have his arm trapped. But for me to continue to get this move, I have to stop him from scooting backwards. And so I've got to race him back, get my knee between his legs. Once I get to this position, I'll succeed in getting the trapped arm gut. Pull it back. Now I'm going to take him away from the side I have trapped. Here. Now we're going to do a trapped arm gut when your opponent stays in a base. And more wrestlers nowadays are staying in a base, getting their knees wide, and trying to fight you in this position. And one of the main reasons they try to do this is to counter a leg lace. Turn sideways. So from this position right here, we're going to do a couple things. One, if I want my opponent to go flat, and we'll go over this in a leg lace, from this position I'm going to get my knees right between his legs and spread them like that, so that I have created a little space there. From there, I'm going to go ahead and lock, take my opponent down. But when these guys set way back, and it's difficult to get in this position here, I'm going to slide my inside knee into this position, and I'm going to trap away from this knee. So I'm going to use my right knee and trap with my right hand, rather than doing it to the same side, because most people expect you to try to collapse the same side. So if I had my left knee in, people expect you to try to collapse with this hand. But I'm going to do it just the opposite. I'm going to use my right knee, and as I bump with my right knee and drive with my left leg, I'm going to trap his right arm into this position right here. From here, I can continue on, and then I can continue back and hold him. So that guy that tries to stay in his base, you're going to use your knee up underneath the butt, drive, and trap. So I'm driving here. From this position right here, I can come back and trap. Another way to get into a trapped arm gut is by pulling on this far ankle. From this position right here, I'm actually going to try to grab this ankle, and I'm going to do a bow and arrow. To counter a bow and arrow, in this position here, he's going to have to plant and try to turn this hip down, because if he doesn't, you'll just continue on over and turn him. So as he's fighting this position, as I pull this, I'm going to go to a trapped arm here and secure the lock. Very important, if you get a trapped arm gut, if you're going to take your opponent the same direction you have the arm trapped, it's way better to just tip him up rather than set him all the way through. Because if you set him all the way through, he's got an opportunity to capture your wrist and hip heist. When you have the trapped arm, and I've got my knee between my opponent's legs here so that he can't back up and get his arm out, I'm just going to tip him the same direction I have the arm and do a hip tip. I don't want to take him all the way through here. As he fights down, that position, I can switch sides and take him back the other way, keeping him tight. One of the combinations that you can use for this trapped arm gut is when you go from the top position, from a gut wrench position, down to a leg lace. Because one of the most important things in parterre defense is a race between you and your opponent. To counter a gut wrench, you want to be down flat. To counter a leg lace, you want to be up. So that transition is very important. But at the same time, if you know he's a good wrestler and he's going to try to counter you, I'm going to try to beat him at his own game. So I'm going to go from the top position down to a leg lace. As he tries to counter that, I'm going to switch off immediately and go to a trapped arm gut. So from this position, I'm working a gut wrench, and I try to beat him on the transition down to a leg lace here. But as he comes up, now my knee is inside, and I'm going to go to my trapped arm gut right back here. From this position, I drove with my knee, captured his arm, and now I'm just going to tip him. I don't want to roll him all the way through. Here. As he fights back down, come back up, capture the wrist. Go into another combination, picking and turning. Very important, as you drill these trapped arm guts, to be able to go into a different combination if the guy fights his way back down. I guarantee you, anytime you get a trapped arm gut, you'll be able to do a cross wrist and go into a cross wrist series. Remember when we go over parterre offense today, that it's very important that when you have the opportunity to turn your opponent, you get on it and work on it hard. Too many wrestlers nowadays take parterre as an opportunity to rest, either on the bottom or on top. But if you take your opponent down, use that opportunity and turn your opponent.